Conservative commentator George Will criticized 2024 GOP primary favorites, former President Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, in the column Friday, saying that both candidates will come out of the GOP primary weaker. The 2024 Republican nomination question was supposed to be, could anyone harpoon the great orange whale? Who knew that he would harpoon himself repeatedly, or that DeSantis playing Captain Ahab would pay Trump the sincerest form of flattery by imitating his persona as an unhappy warrior, Will wrote in a Washington Post column. The nation is dispirited by the prospect of an all too familiar binary choice between Joe Biden and Trump. Republicans might soon recoil from another between Trump and DeSantis. Both candidacies are brittle. Will said, how can he say it if he's writing it? Said that Trump is as stale as a month-old crust of sourdough, claiming the former president is repeatedly repeating common themes and arguments from his 2020 run. He also criticized Trump for going after Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds, who is generally popular in the early primary state, and is signaling that he will skip GOP primary debates. While Trump is stale, Will said, DeSantis is like Ford's short-lived Edsel car brand, pitched as the car of the future in 1957. The brand was discontinued just 2 years after it was introduced in 1959, despite a massive marketing push from the auto giant. DeSantis is running hard to be president of Iowa, or of that minority of Iowans who will vote in the January caucuses and think Trump is ideologically squishy and insufficiently abrasive. Neither candidate has the right stuff to get enough votes nationally to win the primary, he said. Trump has been a GOP frontrunner according to polling averages for the entirety of the contest. Recent national polls show Trump with nearly 50% support on average, while DeSantis garners about 21% on average. Man, these are some scathing comments from the great conservative icon George Will. I guess if we could break this down, I could start with the Captain Ahab part. I believe that's a Jaws reference. Don't quote me on that. I haven't seen Jaws in a few months, several months, maybe since last year, where he says that Trump is repeating a lot of the older themes. I agree with that. I think that Trump in 2016 was really attractive to people because he would talk about the forgotten man and woman, and even with a lot of the it's from Moby Dick. Okay, never mind. I was wondering where Captain Ahab came. I knew that had something to do with a whale, and I didn't put two and two together. I feel very ignorant. But going back to what I was saying, Trump in 2016 was appealing to people because of the whole unknown factor, and he's not part of the establishment, and he might change things for the better. And then by the following presidential election, a lot of people were disenfranchised with him, and I think that was a big part in why we got such record high voter turnouts. His refusal to accept the results has really weakened him, in my opinion, among independents and Democratic vote. People that you would think would cross over a little bit, or that you're going to need in a general election. So I do agree with Will's sentiment that this is something that he's kind of like, he's not as attractive to a regular voter as he would have been, or I guess an independent voter as he would have been 8 years ago. But we'll get into my biggest issue with what Will says later on. The comparison between DeSantis and the Edsel car brand is funny, where, it's got this big marketing campaign, this big push, and it's short-lived. And DeSantis looks like he's going to be short-lived, because for a while he was leading in the polls, and then after he got in, it was like, I'm amused by how quickly things have turned around for him. He's running hard to be president of Iowa, or of that minority of Iowans who will vote in the January caucuses and think Trump is ideologically squishy. Now, it's important to remember, Trump, he didn't win Iowa in 2016, but let's not forget, Iowa is a state that's kind of like the kiss of death for Republican presidential contenders. Like, there's a proven track record where the person who wins that state usually does not end up being the nominee. So if I were DeSantis, I would focus on trying to win New Hampshire, but that's just me. I think Christie knows what where it's at, because he's trying to win there, or I guess is like known to be trying to attempt to do something there the other people aren't. Uh, where Will says neither candidate has the right stuff to get enough votes nationally to win the primary. I'm going to have to dispute that and disagree with that hard, because as much as I think Trump is insane and a lot of the people that back him just kind of turn their brains off, and we've seen some of them leave stuff on here too, I can't look at polls where he's coming in first place sometimes by 30 points, sometimes by 40 points, and say that he can't win this primary. He is the odds-on favorite front runner to win. That's just the way it is. DeSantis, even for as bad as he's doing compared to how he was doing before he got in, he still has a chance to win. He's doing better than everybody else in this damn race, that's for sure. So I don't know where Will gets this idea that Trump and DeSantis don't have the right stuff to win, because if they don't, then who does? The only scenario I could see playing it out is if some other Republican, so like let's say Trump wins Iowa and then Christie wins New Hampshire. Maybe that'll give him some momentum, but when you have polls that show Trump with this high an advantage over his competitors, I just don't think that you can honestly say at this point that he doesn't have the right stuff to win the primary. Now, if you want to say he doesn't have the right stuff to win a general election, that is a more serious conversation where I probably would find some agreement with Will. But there's just too much polling that shows Trump with a very clear and very massive advantage over everybody else for me to believe that he's just going to be like a flash in the pan or like a placeholder for someone else. Because I don't see Haley crawling from the bottom. I don't see any of these people reaching out, like Hutchinson or Elder or Scott. So I don't know who, and that's why I wish that maybe there could have been some specifications. But even then, it's like I just can't picture in my mind a scenario where a lead like that drops so much in a year. Now maybe it does. Maybe we talked about before he could get put in jail or convicted and sentence, but I just don't see it. And I don't, even if that happened, I don't see the Republican voters abandoning him. They're too cult-like. So I agree with a lot of the jokes that Will had at their expense, but I think both of them still have a chance to win this. Trump more so than DeSantis, but DeSantis, again, second place is not the worst position to be in. It's preferable to literally everybody else in the race except one person. And unfortunately, I wish the GOP had some better options, but it looks like we're going to get by June of next year, Republican presidential nominee Trump or Republican presidential nominee DeSantis, unless something massive changes, which I don't think it will.